In travel news for October 22nd, 2024, we cover Boeing's tentative strike deal and its potential impact on flight availability, upcoming Greek tourism worker protests expected to disrupt travel, and Marseille's new Airbnb regulations aimed at balancing tourism and housing. But before we begin, I'm Brandon with the Adept Traveler, an award-winning travel agency that makes travel so easy. Even a blind traveler like myself can do it. And now, Today in Travel. A tentative agreement between Boeing and the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers may bring an end to the 5-week strike that has crippled aircraft production. However, the agreement still requires ratification by union members on October 23, 2024, before work can resume. The deal, which includes a 35% wage increase and enhanced 401k contributions, comes after Boeing faced staggering financial losses during the strike. While this may offer some relief to the aerospace industry, travelers and airlines have already begun feeling the effects. Boeing's production lines have been halted for over 5 weeks as machinists struck in protest of inadequate wage increases and retirement benefits. Boeing has been facing a monthly financial hit of $1 billion as a result, with plans to lay off 10% of its global workforce to mitigate losses. The strike has especially impacted Boeing's production of its 737 MAX, 767, and 777 models, creating ripples throughout the airline industry. Boeing has been grappling with financial setbacks for years, beginning with the 737 MAX's 20-month grounding following 2 fatal crashes. With over $33 billion in losses since then, the strike further exacerbates the company's struggle to maintain production and profitability. The tentative deal includes a 35% wage increase over the next 4 years, a $7,000 ratification bonus, and enhanced 401k contributions. However, it falls short of the union's demands for pension restoration, an issue that may continue to spark tensions even after the strike ends. The strike has had an effect on air travel, particularly as aircraft production delays continue. Airlines that rely on Boeing 737 MAX for their fleets, such as American Airlines, United Airlines, and Alaska Airlines, are likely to see significant disruptions in their ability to maintain schedules and expand their services. With fewer planes being delivered, travelers may experience reduced flight availability and higher ticket prices as airlines scramble to meet demand. Supply chain issues have compounded the strike's impact as shortages in critical aircraft parts prevent timely repairs and maintenance for existing fleets. This means fewer operational planes and more frequent cancellations or schedule adjustments. As the holiday travel season approaches, travelers may face increased fare prices and limited options, particularly on popular domestic routes. For savvy travelers, this period presents an opportunity to plan ahead, book early, and monitor flight schedules closely to avoid last-minute disruptions. The effects of Boeing's production delays may extend well into 2025, leaving the travel industry in a state of flux even after the strike is resolved. Beyond just flight delays, the Boeing strike highlights the fragility of the supply chain in the aerospace industry. Airlines dependent on Boeing's deliveries to expand their fleets have now grappling with how to adjust operations amid production halts. The strike has also affected Boeing suppliers such as Spirit AeroSystems, which recently announced layoffs and furloughs in response to decreased demand for aircraft components. For travelers, this means a potentially turbulent period in the air travel market, where increased costs and diminished availability may become the norm. As airlines shift their strategies to cope with a smaller pool of operational aircraft, travelers who book early and remain flexible will likely navigate these challenges more smoothly than those caught unaware. The tentative agreement is a step in the right direction for Boeing, but the recovery of aircraft production will take time. Travelers can expect the fallout from this strike to affect airlines and flight schedules for the foreseeable future. While tentative deals between Boeing and its mechanics offers hope for an end to the strike, travelers should prepare for continued disruptions in the coming months. The halt in aircraft production has already impacted airlines, creating bottlenecks in fleet expansion and leading to fewer available flights. As a result, travelers are likely to see higher airfares and fewer options, particularly as airlines deal with delayed deliveries. For those planning to travel during peak periods, such as the holiday season, flexibility will be key. Booking early, keeping track of flight updates, and considering alternative routes or dates can help mitigate these impacts of disruptions. Travelers who remain proactive and adaptable will be better positioned to navigate the turbulent air travel market caused by Boeing's labor unrest. In the long term, the aerospace industry's recovery will depend on how swiftly Boeing can resume normal operations. Until then, the effects of the strike will continue to shape the travel landscape, reminding travelers of the interconnectedness between the aviation industry and the travel experience. Greek tourism workers are set to protest over long hours, low wages, and insufficient staff, claiming they are struggling to survive under current conditions. Workers are demanding better pay and a standard 40-hour workweek, but negotiations have yet to resolve the dispute. With protests targeting key tourist areas, including airports and popular archaeological sites, travelers visiting Greece in the coming days should prepare for potential disruptions. Tourism is one of Greece's most vital economic sectors, but for the workers behind the industry, the benefits have not kept pace. Staff are calling for better working conditions, including a 12% wage increase over 2 years and the enforcement of a standard 5-day, 40-hour workweek. Current wages are reportedly not enough to cope with rising living costs, particularly as inflation affects daily expenses. Workers are expected to stage protests at key tourist entry points, such as airports, ports, and archaeological sites, handing out information to tourists about their grievances and seeking support. Public services, already under strain due to high tourist numbers, are also being impacted as the sector struggles to manage the influx of visitors. Travelers heading to Greece may face interruptions during their visit. Protests are planned at major tourist sites, and disruptions are likely at airports such as Athens International Airport, ferry ports, and popular archaeological destinations. Tourists may encounter delays or limited access to services, particularly at well-visited attractions. Those visiting in the coming weeks are advised to stay informed about potential demonstrations and anticipate longer wait times at airports or disruptions to sightseeing plans. While tourism in Greece continues to grow, a recent report suggests that the country's growth rate lags behind other Mediterranean destinations. This slower pace of expansion has not only impacted the country's economy, but also the working conditions of tourism staff. Efforts to promote sustainable tourism and extend the travel season into autumn and winter have been ongoing, yet challenges remain in improving the experience for both workers and visitors. Greek officials have underscored the need for infrastructure improvements and a more diverse tourism offering, particularly in promoting areas beyond the popular sun and sea destinations such as Santorini. Extending the tourism season is one approach, but resolving worker grievances is equally critical for maintaining the country's status as a top travel destination. For travelers, the planned protests by Greek tourism workers may result in temporary disruptions, especially in heavily trafficked areas. While the situation highlights broader challenges within Greece's tourism industry, it also serves as a reminder for visitors to be flexible with their travel plans. Staying updated on protests and considering alternatives to overcrowded tourist sites can help ensure a smoother experience. In the long run, the resolution of these labor disputes will be important for maintaining Greece's appeal as a tourist destination. As the country works to balance sustainable growth with worker needs, travelers should be mindful of the ongoing challenges and prepare accordingly when planning their trips to Greece. In a bold move to combat over-tourism and housing shortages, Marseille is set to implement some of France's strictest regulations on short-term rentals. The mayor has announced new rules that will force landlords to purchase an additional property to offer as long-term rental if they wish to list a property on Airbnb. This measure is aimed at increasing housing availability for residents, which has been drastically impacted by the rise of short-term rentals. These new rules come amid growing concerns across Europe over the impact of platforms such as Airbnb on local housing markets, with Marseille now leading the charge in imposing regulations to curb this issue. While this initiative is designed to protect the city's residents, it also has significant implications for travelers. As one of France's most visited cities, Marseille has experienced an influx of short-term rentals, exacerbating the local housing crisis. City officials argue that the booming short-term rental market, driven by platforms such as Airbnb, has pushed up rental prices, making it harder for residents to find affordable housing. The new regulations aim to strike a balance between welcoming tourists and ensuring that locals can continue to live and work in the city. The mayor's proposal would require any property owner wishing to rent out their apartment on platforms such as Airbnb to also purchase an additional property to be used for long-term rentals. This policy seeks to counter the trend of turning housing into short-term rental units, which has contributed to a housing shortage for residents. The problem extends beyond Marseille. Across France, cities have introduced measures to control the short-term rental market, which they argue has prioritized tourist demand over the needs of locals. Other cities, such as Paris, have imposed strict limits on how often homeowners can rent out their property each year, and Marseille is now taking it a step further by trying Airbnb rentals to increase long-term housing supply. For travelers planning a trip to Marseille, these new regulations could mean fewer options for short-term rentals. Platforms such as Airbnb have been a popular choice for visitors seeking affordable, flexible accommodations, but as the city clamps down on short-term listings, travelers may find themselves turning to traditional hotels or other regulated accommodations. While this could limit the flexibility that platforms like Airbnb provide, it may ultimately lead to a more balanced and sustainable travel experience. By limiting the availability of short-term rentals, the city hopes to reduce overtourism in certain neighborhoods and ensure that the local community remains intact. This move is also expected to reduce the strain on infrastructure, which has struggled to keep up with the increased demand from visitors. For those visiting Marseille, it's advisable to book accommodations well in advance, as the reduced number of Airbnb listings could lead to higher competition for places to stay, particularly during peak tourist seasons. Travelers may also find that regulated accommodations, such as hotels, offer a more reliable and predictable experience, avoiding some of the common issues associated with short-term rentals, such as last-minute cancellations or misrepresented properties. The decision to introduce strict regulations on Airbnb comes as part of a broader effort to address overtourism across Europe. In cities such as Barcelona, Spain, Venice, Italy, and Amsterdam, Netherlands, local governments have struggled to balance the economic benefits of tourism with the need to preserve local communities and manage housing affordability. Marseille's approach, however, is unique in that it directly ties the ability to list a property on Airbnb to the requirement to provide long-term rental housing. This strategy aligns with broader calls for more sustainable tourism, ensuring that visitors can continue to enjoy the city without overwhelming its infrastructure or displacing local residents. As more cities across Europe face similar challenges, Marseille's approach could become a model for other destinations grappling with overtourism and housing shortages. In addition to regulating Airbnb, Marseille has established a special enforcement unit tasked with identifying illegal short-term rentals, further ensuring that property owners comply with these new rules. This Airbnb brigade monitors listings to ensure they meet the local regulations, protecting both residents and travelers from unregulated accommodations. For travelers, Marseille's new regulation on Airbnb rentals represents both a challenge and an opportunity. On one hand, fewer short-term rental options could make it harder to find more affordable, flexible accommodations, particularly during tourist peak seasons. On the other hand, these challenges may improve the overall travel experience by reducing overcrowding and ensuring that the city's infrastructure can better support both residents and visitors. For those planning to visit Marseille, it's important to stay informed about these regulations and consider booking more traditional accommodations, such as hotels, which may offer a more reliable and hassle-free experience. Travelers should also be mindful of how their stay impacts the local community and consider choosing accommodations that support sustainable tourism efforts. Ultimately, Marseille's move to regulate Airbnb is part of a broader trend in Europe, where cities are taking action to preserve housing availability and protect local communities. As these regulations take effect, travelers can expect to see a shift in how they experience cities like Marseille, with a greater emphasis on sustainability and responsible tourism. Today in Travel is brought to you by The Adept Traveler, an award-winning travel agency that specializes in making travel easier for everyone. From the novice to the expert, from the able-bodied to the disabled traveler, it's our belief that everybody deserves to travel better. Until next time, travel well, my friends.